So I was telling Magellan that I was eating dinner with my roommate, and we put on some live TV, and there was a Farscape episode, Look at the Princess Part 2, I think. And
What channel was this on?
it was like,
Sci-Fi?
it was a channel I've never heard of. It was like, not Fuse, but something like Fuse. I don't remember what it was.
Oh, okay.
One of those, like, bargain bin sci-fi channels. And, Farscape, great show. It's really fun. The most fun thing to do is to try before you press info on the episode, to just guess where we are in the series. And so I'm like, okay, I think John has the chip in his head because he's talking to himself.
Yeah, he does by that point.
He does. But also Scorpius is in this episode. And then they said Princess Catralia, and I was like, I think this is like it's like a fun game. I recommend it. Just like if you have a way to somehow hit random on an episode of Farscape, you should.
It's like playing GeoGuessr.
Exactly, that's what I was thinking of. And then the best thing ever was I was like, oh god, I missed 2015. I missed Chat season 1, and then the episode finished, and they played an episode of season 6 of Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Stop it! What?
I felt like I was being electrocuted. I'm like, what the fuck?
Which one? Did you watch that one, or you didn't have time?
603, which is basically what was happening was Dawn was walking Buffy through their house and being like, here's where mom died, here's where you died, here's where we used to hang out. The episode's called Afterlife. Buffy and her friends battle a demon that may have hitched a ride with Buffy as she crossed into the world from another dimension. Season 6 is so emo. Oh my god.
Yeah, I'm not a fan. Not a big fan of season 6.
I was watching it, and I played the same game where I was like, okay, Anya's here, and Dawn is here, and Willow's got magic, and then, okay, so Tara's here, so it can't be late season 6. And Xander in the theme song has seen his double, so we're past that. And Buffy's really sad, so it must be season 6. And it was literally 603. I recommend that.
I gotta watch both those shows again, man.
All the way through?
All the way through.
Yeah. Farscape, I want to get like Blu-rays of because it's such a beautiful, like, striking show. And it always looks like Dookie when you watch it at like 480p on a cable network.
Yeah, it does.
Which gives it this like funny soap opera feel of like it's an old show, but I also want to see it looking good.
Right.
It just has a vibe that's unmatched. And then Buffy, I mean, season 6 is like very plotting. Even in the episode, like 15 minutes I watched, I was like, this is plotting. This is slow. Ugh, go somewhere. And I saw created by Joss Whedon, and I ran away to go do this podcast. Hello and welcome to Chatz8 Television Podcast, Season 15, Chatz8. Each week we watch and discuss 2 episodes of the Netflix original series, Sense8. My name is Alan, and I'm joined by the production designer on Sense8 who decided to put up a sign that says God is not capitalist at the Ganesha Temple. It's Magellan. Did you catch
What
that?
can I say? I'm a little bit nasty. No, I did not. I did not catch that at all. That's awesome.
Really strange scene, the Colosseum where she's going to the temple and the guy's like, you're that man that is shitty. And behind her is literally a sign. Go look it up, folks. It says God is not capitalist. It's why. So that's Magellan. He put that sign up. And I appreciate you for that.
Yeah, no problem. I just wanted to bring a sort of woke perspective to, colonialism.
Yeah, a woke Christian perspective to Indian colonialism. That's the true comedy of it. You ever think about how on Sense8 everybody shouldn't be speaking English, but everyone speaks English because we're watching the show?
Sometimes.
I used to think about that a lot more
to me. It happens to me when, in the second episode, there's a character who's like, "You were just speaking English."
Yeah,
and it's like, you're doing that all the time. What are you talking about?
Yes, yeah. When Kyle is singing the song, yeah, yeah. I think I used to think about that a lot more, and I always would say to myself, "Man, I wish they would make a show where, like Sense8, it takes place in many different countries, many different languages, but the people actually speak their native tongues their native languages." But it would be cool. It would never get made. Who would watch that? What audience is that for? No one.
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
The Sense8s are going to meet in person, I would imagine. Maybe some of them. I mean, who knows? We find out they can visit each other whenever they want.
Mm-hmm.
But let's say, for example, that our good friend Will, from Chicago, he goes on out to Nairobi to meet Capheus in person.
Yep.
Do they just hand wave it and Capheus is like, "Wow, I just learned English from your brain and now I can speak English"? Or do they actually have characters speak in their native language when they're physically in the same space?
Oh, interesting hypothetical you've presented.
I'm asking. Do you remember?
I don't remember.
Okay.
I don't remember if any of them meet in person. I don't know. Because there's so much of them being filmed together that in my head that's just them together. But you're saying the physical real body goes to the other country.
They could be visiting.
I want them all to go to Iceland to listen to, and this show ends at a Riley DJ concert in the middle of Iceland while the Aurora Borealis is above them. That would be ideal to me.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Anyways, what's going on? What's new this week?
I was sick the last time we recorded. I'm feeling better. This is a few days later. I'm springing back into action. I have learned martial arts skills and also gunplay. And I'm just ready to bop around and beat up my rivals. Oh. So, yeah. How about you? What's going on with you? There's a new place. You settling in?
Oh, you're settling in? You're settling in?
You settling in? Sorry, I just learned Scottish from someone in my cluster.
This man watched the show and paid attention to the verbs and the proper nouns. Oh my god. Yes, things are going great in the new place. It probably doesn't sound majorly different, but I did install some soundproofing panels in my room because this room was a bit echoey at first. So if it sounds different than last week, then that's why. Otherwise, this past weekend was I was very much out of my comfort zone. I went dancing with friend of the podcast, Jim, which was nuts.
Whoa, dancing? What kind of dancing were you doing?
Club dancing.
Some booty shaking?
There was booty shaking.
What?
I know, Zach. There was booty shaking. I know.
That's so gross.
There was I don't want to get into the dirty details, but it was really fun. Jim was like, "You're out on your own now. Let's do something that you're not used to. Let's just do something weird." And we did, and I'm glad we did it.
That's awesome.
I tweeted this, but most people that are listening don't follow me on Twitter, and you shouldn't because I'm private on there. A drag queen at that place. It was a gay bar. Shout outs to Club Cafe in Boston. The one of the waitresses was like, "Honey, you look stunning tonight." And a drag queen told me I looked stunning. I'm gonna hold that compliment probably for the rest of my life. I'm never gonna let go of that compliment ever.
Hell yeah! You're never gonna wash this memory.
I'm never gonna wash this flesh prison. That's great. Vibe. And then Sunday I went down the street and went to a dive bar to meet strangers, just to sit and listen to people existing.
Oh my gosh!
Ugh! I don't know who I am anymore. I feel like I'm in the body of someone else or the mind of someone else.
Speaking
but at least
of which,
yes, I'm in a cluster with really cool people. How about that?
Yeah.
And I'm happy to
the
be
cluster is just the friends we made along the way, huh?
It is. God, it is. God. Before we went dancing, we went.
My life is such a movie. Sorry, go ahead.
Before we went dancing, we went to see an improv show, and live improv
my God,
is fun.
What a busted night!
Truly. Well, no, because it was improv, and then I was like, oh, let's get drinks, and then the place that we wanted to get drinks at had a really long wait, so we were like, okay, let's go to this place, and it turned out to be a gay bar. That's the story.
Love it. Okay.
The improv show just like put the love of improv back in me. And the problem with taking 2 improv classes is when you see live improv, you think to yourself, I can do better than that. Come on. That's not even that good. And yeah. I cannot.
Yeah.
Anyways, let's talk about Sense8, yeah?
Let's do it.
Yeah? This week on Chatz8, we watched Sense8 Season 1, Episode 3, Smart Money's on the Skinny Bitch. We also watched Season 1, Episode 4, What's Going On? Smart Money's on the Skinny Beep was written and directed by Lily and Lana Wachowski. It was also co-written by J. Michael Straczynski, and all of Season 1 of Sense8 aired on June 5th, 2015 on Netflix. Michelle, what happened in Smart Money's on the Skinny Beep?
With many of the Sense8's lives becoming more complicated, their newfound gift... Sorry... I just thought about what it would be like if the musical montage in the second episode was set to Avril Lavigne's Complicated.
Oh my God. And then we cut to Amanita. Such a good perfect soundtrack for a lobotomy.
Sorry, we're getting ahead of ourselves. With many of the Sense8's lives becoming more complicated, their newfound gift, while still a mystery, proves vital for survival. Alan, what do you think of this episode of Sense8?
I love Sense8, dude. What a goofy, weird show full of funny little moments and just things that don't necessarily make sense. I think, obviously, amongst these 2 episodes, this one was a bit lower on my scale, but built up to some really cool things and gave us a great action sequence that I was excited to see again. So overall, I definitely enjoyed it. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, I think this episode demonstrates... The first 2 episodes demonstrated to me what was intriguing about the premise and, like, fun, maybe even a little corny. I think this is the first episode that shows what is really cool about it. And then, and, like, fully unironically, like, Matrix cool about Sense8.
Yeah.
And then the next episode is, like, and here's what's, like, humanly beautiful and is going to haunt you for the rest of your life. But we'll get to that. So it's kind of hard to like sit and talk about the first one because I can't wait to talk about the second one. But whew, some cool stuff happens in this one for sure. And you know, they rested Capheus and Sunbok for an episode so that they could come back and just do the most buck wild stuff.
Yes.
And I loved it. It was great.
And first of all, I'm glad that there was so much time between pilot chats and this episode, because I listened back and I did spoil a fair amount of this for you in that recording. I was like, oh, Sunbok is the one who does like martial arts.
Yeah, I remembered that. So that was spoiled for me when I watched the episode.
But and
it was also spoiled by
the
thumbnail. Yeah, super annoying.
Unfortunate. But it goes to show the audacity of Sense8 that we can pivot from like she is part of a like sexist like family and in a horrible system that doesn't treat her fairly, despite her clearly being more experienced than everyone else. Anyway, she's also a fucking martial arts master. Let's fucking go. Why not? Just because you can pivot like that when you are the Wachowskis in particular, who love martial arts films and that style, and like of course they have to have somebody who does martial arts. It's the rules. And also Duna Bay is just so talented and cool looking, and I want to be her kind of. And but it also brings to mind something that I was curious how you're going to feel about this going forward. But the idea that the Sense8s are like basically. Each of them are not only a personality, but they're also a power set. And so we see a little bit of that with Sun and with Capheus and with Will, but we're gonna get a lot more of like what each person's talents bring to the table. Because some of the talents that are not physical, that don't lead to like just fight scenes, are really fascinating to me. You can kind of like connect the dots a little bit with like, maybe Leto being an actor can help people get through certain situations, or maybe Nomi being a hacker can, like, you can just kind of like make those assumptions because like they've talked about them and they've dropped the hints, and now you know that they can basically use all of their puzzle pieces and arrange them however they want. Which is like where this episode succeeds, is it opens up the possibility space for all the things that they can do. But let's get into the scenes. Yeah, I want to just crunch right into this one.
Yeah, let's do that. That sounds good.
We do open with some flashbacks. This episode has a fair amount of them from various characters. I think mainly Will and Riley have flashbacks. Will's is basically a weird horror movie sequence with that guy from episode 1, the guy with the glasses, and some sort of horror movie sequence where he is like cutting open somebody's brain and pulling it out. And there's also a girl there who I believe is the girl that Will has been
Sarah Petrell, I think. Yeah, who he's like, she's a missing persons case that he seems to be obsessed with. And it seems like maybe she was a Sense8, and this glasses guy wants to cut open the brains of Sense8s or experiment on them or get their powers or something like that. That seems to be his thing.
Of all the options for what Sarah Petrell's relationship to Will could be, which one would you find the most interesting, or which one do you think it is?
What are my options?
I guess girlfriend, sister.
She's a little kid. Isn't she a little kid?
Well, yeah, there is an age, but he was also a kid in that flashback. They're both kids.
Oh, really? He was a kid?
So. I think so. That's how I understand it.
Okay.
And then, so like girlfriend, wife, like long lost wife, estranged wife, childhood friend, or I don't know what's another one. Other, I would say.
Yeah. I don't know. I think it's like fine enough for it to be childhood friend. I don't really need there to be like an explicit link, like oh, it's my cousin or something. I don't see what that does really. I think just like a friend or someone who he found himself in that situation with and like knew very briefly or something like that.
Yeah,
I think that's all you really need.
But Will's plot this episode, I kind of like laughed to myself because Will is like, he doesn't have anything necessarily going on narratively. Like, he's not going anywhere or learning anything. He just is advancing the main plot. It's like he's the equivalent of the main quest and everybody else is all the side quests, which means naturally his is the most boring to me, and why I want to go everywhere but down the like, let's learn about Jonas, let's break him out of Homeland Security, blah blah blah. Like, all of that is my bottom tier of interest. But they do some, you mentioned in your notes that they like in the sequence where he opens the red folder and Sun is also opening a red folder. They take something really mundane, people investigating a missing person or a case that they're trying to figure out, and they make it interesting via the show's sort of like match cutting. Can you speak a little bit more to that?
Yeah, I think there's like some really deft cinematography and even just the way this is scripted out or planned. I mean, clearly this is super meticulously choreographed, but as much as it is kind of a little boring that Will is just like the guy who's moving forward the main mystery of the show, we know that he's investigating something. And so when he's poring over these documents and we're cutting between him and Sun also poring over a bunch of documents, the show is telling us, like, okay, we know what Will is doing. We know why he's looking through stuff. We know how important it is because we did all this work to set it up for you. We haven't told you anything specific about what Sun is doing right now at all.
Yes.
All we're telling you is that she is feeling the exact same feelings that Will is feeling right now. So, like, some shit is going down. You know that because you know all this stuff about Will. And now we're using the camera to mirror these characters' experiences and do this really creative stuff with confusing the eye lines so that like we cut from Will's eyes to the papers that Sun is looking at or things like that, or characters move in the frame with the cut and we cut to the other character moving in the same direction. So like this was clearly blocked out, sketched out to look this way, and I just thought it was a gorgeous sequence that shows you what visual storytelling can do that you couldn't quite capture elsewhere, because I think this is a story that you could tell very well on the page with characters like floating into each other's brains or talking to each other, or you kind of leave things ambiguous when you're describing them. But there's just something about like the way that this is almost dance-like in front of you that I think is really quite beautiful. And like you said, turns the scene of a character looking at pieces of paper into one of the most visually interesting parts of the episode, in an episode where there's like people beating each other up and shooting each other with guns and stuff.
This is like my favorite kind of thing that Sense8 is able to do, which is not just like transfer each other's powers, but use the concept of a match cut, the concept of like, we will put this person's face here and then do something similar with the next person in the shot to tell a story and to flesh out characters without words. It's very, very deft, and sometimes even hard to catch if you're not like fully thinking about what everybody is considering at the same time. And my favorite example, probably, well, not this week, but one of my favorite examples this week was later in this episode when Leto is, running lines for one of his characters, and he suspects that this character will be betrayed. He's talking to the director like, I think I'm going to be betrayed. I think I know, and I think I have a feeling. And you see Riley go up to talk to her friends or to see her friends who are taking her to get some drugs or something. And she suddenly feels paranoia. But they don't say anything about that. All that's happening on her end is like, I have these two friends. I'm going to get something from them. That's probably fine. But we, the viewer, are kind of keyed in that she's feeling suspicious because we see that Leto feels suspicious. And I think that's honestly really brilliant.
Yeah. And there's this great line where the director is saying to Leto, giving Leto this feedback of, the audience is you. They're with you. When you know, they know. And it's this meta moment where Leto's like, but I think I know something the audience doesn't know. That makes us wonder, like, whoa, shit, wait a second. Do the Sense8s like get this more than the show is telling us they get it? That's right. Almost what it felt like to me, is Leto saying like, no, I think on some level, intuitively, I understand what is happening to me. And I'm like popping into these other places and visiting them. And the audience is just not seeing that to the extent that he is. And it was this like little flash of meta in your face fourth wall breaking, and then we're back into Leto's plot, and he's like, hey, Joaquin, what's up? And Joaquin's like, I'm a bad guy.
Don't you know I'm a really bad guy.
But I thought that moment was amazing. And anytime they toss one of the actors into the other person's scene and you're like, whoa, what are you doing here? It's so cool and trippy.
I love it every time it happens. Yes.
Yeah.
Let's focus in on Leto for a sec, because there isn't much else with Will other than he gives Kafkas the ability to shoot well later.
Yeah. Does he talk to Jonas in this one, or that's in the next?
I believe that's in the next one. All that stuff that you're thinking of, like with the mechanical description of being a Sense8 in the second one.
Okay, gotcha.
Hernando.
Yeah, let's talk about Leto.
Hernando, Leto's boyfriend, is watching one of Leto's movies and running the girls' lines, which, I mean, to me, this is queer culture, right? This is like so sexy. I love it very much.
It's such a cute scene. Oh my gosh.
It's, as always, whether this is JMS, whether this is Wachowskis, whether this is whoever, if there's a hot woman in a scene and she has just woken up after a night of fun, she has to be wearing no pants and a men's dress shirt. This is a like firm axiom.
Yeah, absurd.
Of
so silly.
Hot women in TV. Where did she get? Did she just take one of their shirts? And I guess, why is it always like this? Like, it's sexy. That's why. Come on.
Yeah, I mean, Danielle as a character is almost almost reads as someone who would put on the dress shirt just because she knows that that's
people
the part.
do that. Yeah.
Like that's the role that she's playing, but that's giving the show a big pass when they're doing, just like a stupid trope that they shouldn't be doing.
And it's just, it's just super tropey. And we do get a little bit more of Daniela this week because it's kind of funny the way that Leto is like, we need you to leave because we want to be boyfriends and we don't need a live-in beard, he says, which is so funny.
Yeah.
We don't need I love when they just say it. She reveals to them that the reason that she wants to stay with them is because she had sex with her fiance's best friend. Oops. And the gears on this plot immediately start turning really fast. Right.
I love everything that Daniela brings to this world. Yep. She brings a very special kind of chaos.
Yes.
That makes this plot so fun to watch. And again, I think this is the plot more than any of the others that I would just watch movie and like not do the Sense8 stuff. Because this idea, it's like such a fully formed ensemble. All of the tensions are there. What a great like triangle of relationships that keeps getting readjusted. Sometimes Leto and Daniela are connecting really well, like when they're out at the bar and he's talking about how he picked her and how Hernando had a part in that and who else was in the running. I thought that was like a really nice scene between the two of them. Or later, I think maybe in the next episode where Daniela really likes Hernando's ceviche and Leto doesn't like it enough. Like they're just all these delightful little characterful exchanges between the three of them. And I would like to just watch this movie. So I'm curious how it's even gonna intersect with the rest of the Sense8 stuff. I don't even know, where it fits. Unless this stuff with Joaquin connects to some bigger plot or something. I'm not sure. But
a lot of the plots this episode felt like, okay, like, oh, we mostly figured out our problems last week. Let's introduce something new and scary to make people have to do things. Whether it's the character of Joaquin or everything that happens with Capheus is kind of like introduced just because he needs conflict. He can't just be successful. That's like not a plot, And so I felt like the Joaquin stuff was introduced in the midnight hour to just say like, okay, well, we need something. We need literally something. And why not make it kind of soap opera-esque or telenovela-esque because, we're playing in that storytelling space. I too, though, really liked the line, which I'm probably going to play a clip of, but he says,
"So, how did you pick me to be your beard?"
My agent showed me your headshot.
You liked my headshot?
It was between you and Gloria Sanchez.
Gloria Sanchez?
Yeah.
That skink? And what was the tiebreaker?
He thought you had kind eyes. Said we'd make a better couple.
I was like,
he's not the only one.
I think she says it, and that was another moment where I was like, this is a great viewer substitute because I'm also like, aw.
Yeah, that was cute.
And then we meet Joaquin, who is just an unhinged character who brandishes a knife over dinner with Leto. But there's a weird humanity at the center of him because he pretty quickly knows that he acknowledges that, Leto, I know that you're with Daniela, but obviously the dramatic irony is he asks him, is she happy? Did she say that she's happy? And Leto kind of thinks about it and says, well, she said that she's the happiest she's ever been, which is true. Leto didn't lie. But this is also after Joaquin says that he's a fan of his movies and he liked how he cut somebody with a knife. He's like, how'd you do that? It's like, well, we got prosthetics, dog. And then he brandishes a knife over dinner, which is a normal thing to do to normal people. And after Leto admits that Danielle's happier, he says, you did it, just like I showed you, right for the jugular. But you should have just used a knife. Which is like so much.
Yeah, it's dripping in melodrama, and it's pretty fun.
Exactly. It feels like a really good like foreign drama or something. I'm like, oh yeah, this is where I expected this to go.
Right.
So we'll check in with our faves sooner than later, I think.
Mm-hmm.
We also have just a little bit of Riley stuff, not too much. We had a flashback to her playing piano while she walks through a London train station.
Yeah, I think I have more thought on the flashback stuff. Because I talked last week about how I disagreed with it as like a device in the show, and I still feel that way. I think it's often used. Maybe I said this last week, but it makes sense that they're using it because it's a pretty efficient way to tell people in the audience, like, okay, here's what they're thinking about. Here's what this relates to. And I think what would fix it for me is if other Sense8s were like observing these memories. You know what I mean?
Right.
Or like experiencing them or getting confused by them or something like that. Mm-hmm. Then I could see an in-universe justification for why we're seeing so many flashbacks, because every episode we see like several flashbacks, and that would solve it for me if we were in Riley's childhood and like Wolfgang is over there in the corner like, where the hell am I? Oh my god, there's a piano playing guy or something. Obviously less stupid than that, but as it stands, every time there's a flashback it's just like okay. I get what you're trying to tell me. Her dad plays the piano. She loves it.
I think my least favorite flashback so far maybe is the Wolfgang flashback to the dad with the piano. What were you gonna say?
At the recital?
Yeah. What was your pick?
Mine was gonna be the one where Capheus is talking to his friend Jenna. Is that right? Jella. And he's talking to Jella about how he's like, when I was a kid, I used to wish that I would be a zebra. And then it flashes back to him as a kid being like, I wish that I was a zebra. It's like, you can't do that. Like, why are you doing that? Just stay in the present and have him do the monologue and make it a great monologue where he's doing this. You don't need to go back and show him in the past. But it was making me think if like, is this a writing thing and that's why there's the flashbacks, or is it also a production thing?
Yeah.
Because if you toss in these flashbacks, because the Wachowskis are flying over the whole world doing these like main unit shots, presumably. Mm-hmm. So maybe this is like a second unit thing of like, we can go send somebody else to pick up a flashback of Riley's childhood and we can go film the rest of the show that is like a wild undertaking to have to film. So that was something else I was thinking about too.
This episode has, under second unit, has 30 credits for second unit or assistant directors, because they had units at every single set.
Yeah.
They have the Mexico set here, the London set, etc., etc.
Wow. What a beast of a production this must have been.
The most canceled show of all time.
Yeah.
Not literally, but definitely very like, oh god, we can't support this again any longer.
This show could only exist in the like scope of television history like a couple years into the streaming era, when people thought that it like Netflix was a money printing machine.
Exactly. And it was for a while.
It was, yeah. Yeah.
I was going to also just pivot to talk very briefly about the two characters introduced in Riley's plot, Shugs and Bambi. How we feel about Shugs? First of all, we have a friend of the podcast, Ryan Slowinski, who is Australian. I need to ask you what you think about Bambi's bad attempt at an Australian accent. That actress is British. And not Australian, to my understanding. And it's bad, in my opinion, and I'm not even Australian.
Well, and also this being the only Australian representation in a show that is a global show. Very
bananas,
curious,
right?
What Ryan thinks about that. Riley, I think I'm interested in Riley. I'm interested in, the situation that she's been flung into, but it feels like we're stalling a little bit with her. And I just want to get her out of London. I just want to get her hanging with the other Sense8s. And I'm not sure where she's going. And these two are like entertaining enough. They're kind of funny. It's like a little much.
Yes.
But especially in the second episode, which I guess we'll talk about. But yeah, for me, Riley, I'm just like not super interested in what's happening with her right now until we get her involved with everybody else, which starts to happen in the next episode, but I want to see more of.
Yeah, and I don't even remember a single thing about where Shugs and Bambi's plot goes or how that relates to like how they're going to get her out of London. But
yeah,
it sounds like we learned that she has a really good reputation as being like a good DJ, legitimately, and two, she just has she travels in strange company. What can be said beyond that? Right. So pivoting to Sun really briefly, we mentioned the red folder is safe thing. She is angry and looking for her dad. In leaving a message for him, the message happens to be breaking a table because, as the thumbnail spoils, Sun has been taking martial arts lessons for much of her life. And we learned towards the end of the episode that she is involved in, I'm not making this up, an underground illegal fighting arena because fucking why not?
Yeah,
it looks
just
like
kickboxes on the side. It's awesome.
It looks like Tron Legacy down there, which I thought was fun.
It does.
And a guy goes up to fight her and goes, wait a minute. My roommate was watching with me. And before that guy even spoke, he was like, that guy's going to go, wait a minute, that's a girl. And he goes, wait a minute, that's a girl. And I was like, show is delightfully predictable. Somebody says to him, there's nothing in the rules about gender, which I wish was how life worked. Extend that right out to the rest of the world. And she's fighting this guy and kicks his ass after getting beat up for a while. And that ties into Capheus's plot as he beats up the Superpower, which is a group of gangsters in Nairobi, I guess.
Yeah, so Capheus, we rejoin him, and he and his friend Jella are trying to buy AIDS medicine for his mom. And we get this scene where they're bartering with this guy who tells them to fuck off, and so they call him Mr. Fuck Off, which is a really funny scene.
Yeah,
I think his friend Jella is great, a very smooth talking guy. He does this fake phone call to get the Mr. Fuck Off to lower his price. He drops the money in front of him. It's a very entertaining scene. And it sets us up for later when they're on the Van Damme bus and they get robbed by this group who calls themselves Superpower, and basically says that they can take whatever the fuck they want. They grab Capheus by the crotch, which is where the pills are hidden. And the guy's like, you don't have a dick this big. And they take the drugs from him. And so
how good would that scene have been, by the way? Sorry, how good would that scene have been if they were like, oh my god, you do have a dick this big. Cool. Okay, you can go. You're free.
I would believe it. I would let Sense8 do that.
Yeah.
And Capheus decides to go after them. There's something inside him that snaps, and he's like, I need that medicine. And it turns into like the hammiest action movie for a bit there. Because Jella's like, wow, he really is Van Damme. And the old woman in the back of the bus is like, they took the ring that my husband, it's the last thing I have with my husband.
45 like, years.
Let's go beat him up. And you're like, fuck yes, let's go. And then this is where I knew that Sun had martial arts ability prior. And I think I knew, maybe you also said in the pilot chats that everybody can fight because of her.
Yeah.
Maybe you mentioned that. So I knew like, okay, Capheus is about to get some like abilities and it's going to rock. And then he does. And he like beats up the guys and also surprisingly gets Will's gun range shooting ability.
Because Will just happens to be at a gun range just practicing because why not?
Yeah. And just turns into a one-man action movie star. Yeah.
He becomes Van Damme.
These bad guys. Yeah, it's great.
Very, very entertaining. I want to see more of this. I know we get more of this. It's really just it's popcorn entertainment. What's better than this?
Yeah, right.
One of the connections, by the way, to the Capheus plot that I liked was the only touching on Kala's plot this episode was We see her at work in the same, I guess she works with Rajan. Like they work at the same pharmaceutical company.
Yeah.
He works for her father. She works for his father. Regardless, they're watching a presentation about fake medication and how medication can be mistaken for another one and be counterfeited. And there's a whole market for that. And I sort of love the symbolism of, you know, these like rich Indian folks who are working at this pharmaceutical company, like talking about that in theory. And then we cut to Kenya, where that is like an active issue that is being dealt with all the time. They're doing something with that, where like you just watch it on a presentation, and it is my lived experience, which I think works, and also like it gives Kala a lot of empathy, which we'll talk about next episode. But yeah, you pretty much covered that stuff, and the chase was pretty fun. Honestly, I think that covers all the episode. There was like some brief stuff with Nomi, but it concludes the next episode, so we should probably just save it. My continuing thought with Nomi is it's really unrealistic the way that they talk about how horribly she's treated, but I'm of two minds of it, because number one, it's portrayed as like, this is what your nightmares are like. This is like the horror movie version of how you can be treated in a doctor. Right. And I'm sure, unfortunately, people are treated like this, but also there might be something deeper going on where like the system is conspiring against her, right? Because a lot of her plot is like, am I paranoid, or how corrupt is the world actually? How afraid should I actually be of the world versus am I hallucinating? And they, you know, Metzger tells her later, like, your hallucinations are getting worse and more intense. And so part of it is, I think they're going for a like, is this even really happening, or are we just seeing it through her perspective as really evil and scary?
Right. What muddles it for me is also, is this doctor tied to like the bad guy who's cutting open a brain at the beginning?
Exactly.
And that kind of muddles the reality of it a little bit. I'm not sure. So yeah, I share those conflicted feelings about it.
But that's what I have for this first episode. Any stray notes from you, Magellan?
Did you mention what Kala's friend says about Rajan?
No, what did she say about her friend? What did she say about Rajan?
Kala said somebody said something about like being lobotomized. There's a lot of talk of lobotomy.
Oh God.
And then her friend says, if I was marrying that man, I'd let him lobotomize me all day long.
And speaking of the privilege of these people, and then we like cut to Nomi later, and she's like, "Oh God, lobotomy!" Like, really clever, interesting. What a line! Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Yeah. There's a guy who says, the like federal agent says to Will, "Enjoy your 5 minutes of fame and stop trying to make 6 out of it," which is like awesome such line. A written line, but a pretty fun line.
One of the most written lines so far. Yes, for sure.
Yeah, it's like a line that directly precedes a song in a musical or something. Character storms out, and then Will has his "I Want" song in that moment.
Exactly. The "I Want." Perfect.
But I think that's all. Pretty nice that this was 49 minutes. You gotta love that era of streaming television where it's like, number of minutes, who cares?
It's all fake.
Somewhere between 39 and 69, we'll figure it out.
Nice. Well, I don't want to get started on this right now, but it started as you can make things shorter or longer, and because streaming gets more dollars and gets more subs if you stay on longer, if you engage longer, everything has chosen to go longer now. Every episode of Stranger Things season 4 is over an hour long. Every single one. And it's like, guys, where did we come from? You know, we had the ability to make shorter TV, no commercials, no nothing, and instead we said, what if we just blossom this out? I'm annoyed by it, where it's gone, but yeah, this episode being blissfully short was a boon. Let's move on though. Yeah, we will be right back after this brief musical break to discuss what's going on.
Welcome back to Chatz8. The second episode we watched this week was Season 1, Episode 4 of Sense8, entitled, Ooh, What's Going On? It was written by Lily and Lana Wachowski. NJ Michael Straczynski.
Oh,
It was directed by Tom Tykwer. Tykwer?
I think so.
First episode directed by someone who is not a Wachowski. It aired with the, right?
Yeah, he's the composer.
Oh,
Which makes you think about the last scene. That's why it's like that. The composer directed the episode.
Whoa. That's cool.
I'm sure that's not the only reason, but you have to imagine that was involved, like thinking about syncing to music and stuff like that.
Right.
He's directed some movies. He composed mostly, going as far back as Run Lola Run. But nowadays he composes everything for the Wachowskis.
Wow. That's really cool. Okay.
Yeah.
It aired on June 5th with the rest of season 1. Alan, what happened in What's Going On?
He also directed Run Lola Run. Cool. Nomi's fate draws nearer in this episode. Meanwhile, Capheus and Wolfgang's fortunes seem to have turned. But Sun is faced with an impossible choice. Guys, it's not impossible. She should just simply say no to her family. It is okay. This doesn't seem that hard. Awesome episode. Everything that was like cooking in the last one already popping off. The magic of streaming TV is you don't have to build to the end of the season because you can just build to episode 4. Why not? People are going to keep watching. Who cares? I loved What's Going On. I was anticipating the ending of this episode for weeks. It's with the easily like top 3 most memorable moments in season 1, and I'm really glad I didn't spoil it for you for once. So, what did you think of What's Going On?
I thought it was a pretty good episode. And then the song happened. And I was like, oh my God. This is the greatest sequence I've ever seen in television in my life.
What did your text say? Wow, Sense8 is serving up perhaps the greatest sequence I've ever seen in a television show.
This is the story. So this is the sequence of events that happened while I was watching this episode. My notes are kind of funny for this one because I was at home doing the dishes and some other chores for like the first half of the episode. And then I sat down and I took notes on what I'd seen so far.
Uh-huh.
And then I went over to my girlfriend's apartment and took some minute by minute notes along the way. And then I was doing some chores over there. And I was like, okay, about to go do some chores. I'll take notes in a second. And I'm like, okay, weird. The people are fucking in the corner and Kala's watching it. Wolfgang said, fuck you at karaoke. Okay, anyway, got to go back to my chores. What? Shut up. This is incredible. The song's playing. And then I put down my chores and I just stared at the sequence as it was happening.
Amazing.
It was beautiful. Yeah.
It was beautiful, and it goes to show something I always am such a sucker for, which is music as a storytelling device. The power of a catchy song, of a memorable, iconic karaoke song can literally transform the sequence of an episode. I also literally last night I'm rewatching Ted Lasso with some friends, and there's a great sequence also involving karaoke and a really memorable song in that series. And I was just like, man, karaoke is like such an underutilized thing in TV and movies, and I love it every single time I see it.
Well, and wasn't there a great karaoke thing in The Leftovers?
Yeah, we're on a grinning streak right now. I need like 5 more shows in a row because I'm happy. I'm smiling all the time and listening to Bare Naked Ladies.
Shut up.
Half of my lines that I make up in my head, or AKA my writer's team, are to make Magellan make that noise. So... glad we're doing great here, team. Anyways, we're grinning because I love karaoke scenes. Let's get there, though. We start off back in Germany, and Wolfgang and Felix are trying to fence the diamonds that they stole from that rich guy's house. They meet this like old gentleman who I didn't even manage to catch his name. And he talks about how, is he a Holocaust survivor, or why does the Holocaust come into his story?
His mom, if I'm understanding correctly, his mom was of the age where she would have been present for the Holocaust, except that just before it happened, she, like on a whim, followed a lover of hers and left Germany, and then it happened, and then she returned after the fact to try to find her parents, but she couldn't find them and never left Germany again after that. And it's kind of used as this like narrative thing of like, I guess, follow the big gambles or something. It's like kind of a weird, thematically weird thing, because they're trying to sell this guy these diamonds, and Wolfgang is like, hey, I was listening, and it's what your mom would do. She would take the risk on these and buy them and try to turn them and sell them, recut them or whatever. But I think it's mostly just like texture,
I see,
and place setting, and yeah, I don't know. It's kind of, this episode, the stuff that's not as good about it to me is like the way that it kind of uses the culture, history of the different locations that it's in, but does so, I don't know, in like a kind of not surface level, like that's a little too harsh, but like it feels similarly to me to the stuff with Kala when she goes to the Hindu temple, and there's this whole thing about like people are trying to get rid of our traditions, where it's like, I can see how this is like an authentic theme that could be told in this space, but it feels a little like rushed the way that it's being told. I don't know. So,
yeah.
Definitely a super interesting character, this like jeweler guy, who's like gonna, you know, what's the word? Fence. This fence, who's gonna fence the gems for them. But you know, it's another Sense8 thing of like, we can only spend so much time here, so it can only be so developed.
Exactly. And I think it was funny in your notes that like Wolfgang's plot just kind of starts to go well from here. It's like, oh, I hope we can fence this. And the guy's like, I mean, I don't know, it might not work, but I'm going to try. And then next scene, they're like, we're rich. It's like, okay, so it worked. And then we spend a little bit of time with Felix and Wolfgang as they go to buy some shoes, which brings us back to Capheus's plot, because Wolfgang finds poop in his shoe, or dirt or something. And it's you know, Capheus being dragged through the mud. And then we see Felix like really just enjoying the wealth and flexing how rich they are becoming briefly. And you mentioned like, this is extremely somebody who isn't going to do well, or something bad is going to happen. He's going to die, or like,
yeah, Felix seems doomed to death at this point. If anybody's friend is like 2 days away from retirement, it's Felix right now.
He's having fun at karaoke. He's buying expensive things. I think though that it's going to be something where Wolfgang wants to protect him from all the bad people. And so it becomes like Wolfgang's friendship with Felix is the core of that storyline. And his burgeoning relationship with Kala, who he keeps seeing and making eyes at. I don't know how I feel about that, but we'll see where that goes eventually.
It's a choice. It feels kind of arbitrary.
It is a choice, yes.
But whatever.
Because Wolfgang's making deals, and Kala's family is also making deals. Another one of those clever little cuts as she is in sort of a meeting with her father, Rajan's father, Rajan, and some other these like really rude like marriage director people who are like, well, if you the ceremony is gonna be about 6 hours long because there's 2 different ceremonies, and they're like, how much money can we give to make it shorter? And it's like, well, if you double it, you get half the service. And then how much money can we give you to have no service? He's like, oh, you don't have that kind of money. But Rajan's father is clearly like ultra wealthy, and we also have this thing about Rajan wanting rings for his marriage in a very like lovey-dovey, clearly putting on a front sort of way of, I want people to know that we're in love and to have physical proof, because most marriages in India don't feature rings, so like I want rings to prove it. And it's like, yeah, I don't trust a man who says things like this, honestly. It's weird, it's very sus. And within this episode we already learned that it probably is sus, because Kala, in walking to a temple where people are worshiping Ganesha, they tell her, well, this Rajan guy and his father, they don't know that she's related to them or is about to be related to them, are like they're like hawking bad pharmaceutical drugs and also trying to westernize India. which is fascinating. Like the colonizer coming from within sort of thing. The capitalist leading to colonization.
Right, which is why Kala instead is going to date the German man in her brain.
The German white guy, exactly.
Like, what are the themes here, guys? What are we doing?
What are we doing here?
I don't know. Go ahead, sorry.
Is Kala going to like lead a revolution? Probably not. Probably she's just going to leave and be like, this sucks. I kept expecting her to be like, is this where she runs away? Where does she run away? It'll happen any second now, I'm sure. Maybe it'll happen at the wedding. That's the scary part. But again, the show just like teases themes like that and then doesn't do much with them. At least not yet. But yeah, it's a surprisingly slow burn overall, I will say. Like, even I didn't expect by the end of episode 4 to still be peeling back this idea of like, oh, we're connected to each other and we're hearing each other in our brains. And I thought at this point everybody would be in like a big brain pile saying like, hey, what's up? My name's Will. Nice to meet you. But we're not quite there yet, which is cool. I like that the show's taking its time. But that means that there's some like plots and themes that are unresolved, or we just don't know if they make good on them or make them work. But for this stuff with Kala, I'm just not quite sure if this is the show that tells the story of tradition versus modernity in modern India, you know? Nope.
So, yeah.
I think that's also some of the JMS influence is like, look, we're going to handle this culture super well. We did some research. And it's like, yeah, but you're still handling it like really slowly in such a surface level way that you're not going to make a meaningful point about this. Yeah. I don't expect you just don't have the time.
Right. And I think if these creators were to, not that they would be the creators who should do this, but if they were to make a feature-length film about this story, we might be singing a different tune. It might look different. But
yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. When you're making an eighth of a TV show about something, you know, in terms of absolute time, we're talking about like a short film, essentially. So it's just not quite the most interesting part of this episode for sure.
Right. And so she learns, that they're outlawing these Hindu temples, and in that same scene, as I mentioned, the sign in the back that says God is not capitalist keys us in that this is a class thing and a wealth thing, not just a like religious thing. Yeah. So they're dealing with a lot of the same tropes and ideas that the Wachowskis especially love very well, and JMS really love, is like this anti-capitalist stuff, but not in any way that feels like it has teeth yet. But anyways, we have a bunch of other stuff. Felix, I mentioned all that stuff. I did a brief note on Felix. I was going to save this for stray notes, but I want to talk about it. He talks about being a man and how he lost his virginity at the age of 14 to a 16-year-old girl. What a weird line to include, huh?
Yeah, it's a weird monologue.
I mean, Felix is just weird.
Yeah, it tells you a lot about like his priorities and worldview and what, like, the ways in which he's naive but doesn't think that he is. I think it does a lot to characterize him and doom him for death. Yeah.
I was just gonna say, to something you spoke about earlier. I know I'm kind of like jumping back and forth, but I noted that I wanted to mention it. You're talking about like how quickly the characters learn that they are Sense8s, and I think it's a really difficult thing the show's trying to do in this first season, because like in some shows they might have found it out in episode 1. If this was like an anime, we would have just been like, okay, maybe some anime are way slower paced, but they would have just been like, okay, you're all weird. What do you mean I'm connected to other people? Okay, I figured it out. But because everybody's connected, in reality, only one person has to figure it out. And then everybody has figured it out. We don't need all 8 of these people to be visited by Jonas and have him explain it, because they share a brain cell. So, like, once Will fully gets it, I think that's when the plot is going to stop trying to explain it to our characters and just let them be like, okay, I have this. And, like, don't beat us over the head with it. You only have 10 episodes. Like, you know, we got to get through. Right. We have to get past that. Because where the show can potentially, and this is something I remember thinking watching the first season, is like, how amazing will the show be when everybody knows and they are choosing to use their powers?
Right. And they
like,
have a common goal, and they're like beating people up and doing cool stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, that's like what I'm super excited for. So to get us there though, we have a bunch of other plots. Was there anybody in particular that you were excited?
Well, I will say the other thing about Felix that's important that he introduces towards the beginning of the episode is this discussion of like revolution and obedience, which
ties
I think
into the
becomes important when we talk about the song at the end. So I just wanted to flag that here.
Yeah, the script is hinting at it.
Yeah. Let's talk about Capheus. And what's going on with him. So the Van Damme bus is the most successful it's ever been. Amazing. Which is incredible. Prior to that, there's this like really sad scene where Capheus is at home with his mom, and his mom is talking about how much of a burden she feels like she is to him, and like how
she wishes
if she was
didn't
a
have
good
to take
mom,
medicine.
Yeah, and she's like, if I was a good mom, I would just stop taking my medicine. And it's like, God, this is really, really tough and sad. And then Capheus is driving around the bus. It's fully packed. It's the busiest it's ever been. And then they get stopped for what seems like a routine traffic stop. Check the papers. But it turns out that Capheus is being taken to this like kingpin guy who's
Silas Kabaka.
And Silas is basically going to bribe Capheus to kill someone. What is the thing he wanted him to do?
He says, I need you to take this bag. I need you to transfer. He's basically going to become my roommate was like, he's a transporter. He becomes a transporter. He has to transport a bag, and he'll get good medicine in exchange.
Yeah. And
I remember where this plot goes.
I think that's the extent of what we see of Capheus in this episode, right? Is he's just presented with the moral choice and he doesn't make it yet. Mm-hmm. I mean, narratively, he's obviously going to get mixed up in some nasty dealings.
Yeah.
There's no story in the world where you meet this kingpin in his car and you're like, no thanks. And then we just move on. But I guess we'll see just how bad it gets pretty soon.
The one thing in the Capheus, well, yes, that's exactly right. And I noted that the actor who played Silas Kabaka he's actually Kenyan, and I was like, oh, have they been like correctly racially casting most of the show? And it seems like they have. They actually like especially for the side characters, hired actors from the countries that their story takes place in, which I think is great. I just wanted to shout that out. But easily the funniest moment in this episode is in Capheus's plot when Jayla is hanging out the side of the truck and he's cheering and screaming like, we're so successful, and his face gets hit by a bunch of palm trees, and he goes, oh man, that's my ancestors telling me to stop being arrogant. Like that was me getting humbled. And then it happens like 3 more times, and I was laughing very hard. I was like, this joke went on exactly long enough to be funny and not to be long to be annoying.
Yep.
We got Sun. Sun is recalling her childhood. We get stuff with her mom. Lots of flashbacks with Sun here. She's jealous of her brother. Her father loves him more and doesn't even acknowledge her as they get older.
We get the same like piece of a flashback a second time.
Literally, yes.
It's like, guys, we're binging this on Netflix. Come on.
I just watched this.
Yeah.
No matter. It is. Or it's just like they ran out of footage or something to film with the mom. I don't know. But she threatens to tell somebody about the embezzlement. She's like, what you guys are doing is embezzlement. And she traces this back to Junki, her brother, who is in a like ridiculous sex club where everybody's got private rooms and they all have sex with each other.
Yeah.
She busts in like a badass. And we learn pretty quickly that Junki is like a sniveling loser because she approaches him and her father and is like, this embezzlement thing is going to tank the company if somebody doesn't handle this. And very quickly, as if he's sad, but clearly not that sad, her father is like, I mean, there is one way we can get rid of this problem and make it not happen. Clearly implying that like, because nobody knows who Sun is, because her father never mentions her, she can just take the fall for this anonymously and we can brush it under the rug. But she basically has to tank her own career, which we don't see her make the decision this episode, but she's clearly not gonna do that. And so this is the moment where she's kind of fracturing from her family, but like seeing Junki like literally beg on his knees to her, I was like, ugh, this guy's so shitty. It sucks. What a bad brother.
Yeah.
Again, as Sense8 tends to be not subtle at all, but I hope Sun finds a cool way to get out of all of this situation. Preferably with her martial arts skills, because they're really cool.
Yes, please. That would be great.
Duna Bay can beat me up any Duna day of the week. Anyways, deleting that from my notes. Bam. Will, by the way, speaks Korean now. He's trying to find Jonas, a cop guy. This is another funny moment. He sees the other cop guy, and he's talking to him, and he accidentally slips into Korean, and the other guy goes, "Whoa, Korean!" Speaks Korean back at him. He's like, "I took martial arts for years. Like, what's up, dude?" It's like, bruh, what a funny fucking scene to write.
Such an incredible moment. So good.
And then he's like, "Can you let me see Jonas?" And he's like, "No, dude, no, I don't."
Definitely not.
Super can't say you can't do that. And Will gets the like lore breakdown from Jonas in solitary confinement at this point. Delineating the difference between like sight and what are the two verbs that they use?
So he says that there are two things that a Sense8 can do. You can visit and you can share. And visiting is this like telepathy thing of I'm in your space, I'm talking to you, you feel like I'm right here, you can sense the things that I sense. And then sharing is like you can only do it in your cluster, so they're a cluster of 8. And sharing allows you to share your memories or your skills or your languages or things like that.
Yes, so there's and they talk about because sight is like an eyesight thing, that's why he actually had to go physically get closer to Jonas to do this, because they're not in the same cluster.
Right.
Because I was thinking when I was watching the episode, I'm like, did he have any reason to go here if he could just like mind meld into Jonas? But like, no, it doesn't work like that. It's cool that they ruled that out. But Jonas basically tells him, you need to keep all 8 of you alive. One of you is going to die if you don't save her. Her name is Nomi Marks, and she's in San Francisco. We think that Will's going to go to San Francisco, but instead the lobotomy comes to Will because he wakes up with the IV in his arm, and he's like,
wait,
okay.
If Jonas needs to see, how did Jonas visit Nomi?
Wait, was he in San Francisco at that point?
I don't know. Maybe.
I don't know either.
I guess that makes sense. And then he went to Chicago.
To Chicago, yeah. Maybe Jonas is the only one traveling.
Okay, I guess that makes sense.
And that's to explain why there's like a couple days difference between those two. Anyways, Will uses his cop powers to break Nomi out of confinement and out of the surgery room. I hate all this. I hate the like, just we're helping you. She's like, you guys are killing me. They're like, no, it's gonna be for your bet. You're good. It feels like you're writing a nightmare. Like you're writing like a 10-year-old's nightmare or something. I don't know. Just I hate it because it's uncomfortable, and I hate it because it's unrealistic. I hate both of those things about it.
Yeah, the moment where the doctor's like, nurse, I was gonna operate tomorrow morning, but I don't think Miss Marks here can afford to wait, is
Woof.
like a very hostile in a way that I'm sure has happened to someone, and also like,
and this is why I'm like, does Metzger just work for the bad guy? Because that would actually make this all make sense,
right?
Or at least make enough sense that I would stop being like confused and worried about it. But she gets out. Neitz gets her all the way out, and they find their way into the final scene as they're riding away. But to get other people there, Riley is thinking about potentially going to Iceland. She hears a call from her father, I think, who's like, I have a performance soon, or I want to hear you perform soon.
He was invited to play for the symphony, I think.
Yes. And he wants her to be around. So he's like, you should come to Iceland and see me.
Yeah.
She is staying in the same room as those two friends, which means that Kala gets to very embarrassedly wake up to the sound of Riley's friends having sex.
Not just the sound, like full on seeing it happen.
And at the conclusion of it too, which can you just, I don't want to say can you not, because you can. I'm gonna allow it, but wow, I just loved Kala's embarrassment. Kala's like, she literally gasps at one point, like, I'm watching someone nut right now. Oh my god.
Right, like covering the eye but opening the fingers up.
Yes.
Yeah,
I love, it makes me love Kala, the way that she reacts to this scene.
Yeah, right.
And that's pretty much it. Then we get to the best scene ever of the show so far. Everybody is in various states of doing well, doing poorly. Sun is showering naked. We get to just see her ass for like 5 minutes. Will is, I think, just like sitting on a bus or something. Everyone's calling places. Everyone's in various states of happiness or unhappiness. And we're all singing What's Up by Four Non-Blondes. And it's...
Yeah.
This is good, right?
It's good.
Okay, thank you. I needed someone else to say it. Because I watch it and I'm like, this is so saccharine and so corny. But sometimes it is 1 a.m. and you get a weird song stuck in your head real deep. And sometimes you're like, because it works in every context, right? Like at the end, Neat says, it's a perfect soundtrack for a lobotomy, which is like such a written line. But it works for, it works for Sun, who's like worried about making a big life decision. It works for Nomi, who literally doesn't know what's going on. It works for Riley, who is confused about the powers she's finding. It just works. Right. It's a universal song.
Yeah, it works in the karaoke bar as just like a fun song that everybody
we're celebrating and listening to music. Yeah.
Or you're in the car with Capheus. Yeah. It's a testament to like just how fucking good this song is. It's great. I think what I really, I was trying to think about like, okay, I really enjoy this song. We recently, I think we said last week, we're doing karaoke in like a karaoke room and sang this song, and it destroys your throat doing this one.
It's a song to belt, yeah.
Yeah. And so is it just that I enjoy this song and have previous attachments to it, or is there something about the lyrics to it that makes it, especially suitable to this episode? I think what I really like about it is it's a song that's about rage and disaffection, but it kind of moves through that rage and disaffection to find solidarity, which to me feels like the point of this episode. Like we see every single character in a moment of like shit is hitting the fan right now, with Capheus and the guy that he meets, with Sun, with Nomi, even with Leto to a certain extent, getting more and more stressed out about the Joaquin situation.
Right.
With Will, Riley's at a crossroads. Like everybody is at a moment of a decision needs to be made. Kala, same thing. Maybe Wolfgang's the only one who's like not particularly upset about anything right now. But everybody's like mad or feeling hopeless or scared, confused. And the act of singing the song is the thing that brings them together and helps them find the solidarity that the song is like hoping for.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's well said. I think with Wolfgang, though, there are two things that bring him to connection with this song. One is like he is still processing like the death of his father, who he feels mixed about, obviously. And I mean, he's seeing and he's going to India over and over again. His brain is going to India, and he's like, well, I don't know what the fuck is happening. I feel like sometimes, things are going really well for you in your tangible life, but you just feel in the back of your head, like, what the fuck is going on? What is this normal? Are things going to stay good like this? Is Felix like, I kind of empathize actually with Wolfgang singing the song at karaoke and being like, what is this? And it's just a different type of reaction than everyone else. I think that this scene is a great litmus test. Like if you're not fully bought into Sense8's brand of earnest 2015-ass like neoliberal corniness, then like you might need to step off the show from here, because it's only going to get more and more absurd. But like, let's not even forget that like Four Non-Blondes, like big band in the queer community based in San Francisco. Like the show bleeds its influences out everywhere. With like Nomi being, a stand-in for Lana Wachowski, and for just so much of the plot feeling like it's coming from a place of reality and turning it into a place of beautiful fantasy. I love this. I love the what's going on sequence very, very much, and I want more shows to do this.
Can I read you something?
Yes.
So I'm on the Genius page for What's Up
by
Four Non-Blondes. Bassist Krista Hillhouse recalled hearing Linda Perry working on the song for the first time. Quote, "For a short time, Linda had quit her job and she was living with me in this little 2-bedroom flat in San Francisco. She wrote the song when she was in a room down the hall. I was in my bedroom having sex, and I stopped because I heard her playing that song. I remember running down the hall and saying, 'Dude, what are you playing? I like that.'" I just thought that was funny.
Perfection.
Yeah. Great tune.
Very great tune. Very great. Any stray notes on this episode, Michelle?
I already mentioned the ceviche scene, but I just think that's really charming.
Shout that out. Yes, Leto and his boyfriend.
Yeah,
yes.
And I love that it ends with Daniela loving the ceviche and Hernando being like, "It's actually not just ceviche; it's a mix of a few different things."
Bunch of things, yeah. I want to. I never had ceviche. Charming.
Me neither. Anything else? No, that's pretty much it. I think it's it's an episode where it's clear what the meat of it is and what the fun of it is, and it's incredibly fun. And like you said, if you didn't like that sequence,
this might not be the show.
You're watching the right show. Yeah, exactly.
You can watch anything else. This is a deeply earnest and corny show, and that's okay. Great. I would love to read to you the summaries of next week's episodes, Magellan.
Okay, go for it.
Hey, future Alan here. Just going to interrupt my past self and say, due to scheduling and a sort of rejiggering of how we are doing the Chat's main feed, next week we are not resuming Sense8. We are actually going to take a week-long break to do another Should You Watch episode. So, Should You Watch, we just did House of the Dragon and Lord of the Rings of Power, parts 1 of both seasons. And we're going to be doing part 2, and that episode is going to come out next Sunday. So what you're about to hear me say is what we are going to be discussing in 2 weeks. So if you're watching Sense8 along with us, and you should be, then what you're going to hear is for an episode releasing 2 weeks from now. All right.
Sense8, Season 1, Episode 5. Art is like religion. The Sense8 struggle with intensifying connections, which then results in some interesting days on set for Leto and a wedding day surprise for Kala. Next up is Season 1, Episode 6, Demons. While the Sense8's bond, Nomi takes a bold move to gain her freedom, and Sun makes a choice she might someday regret. Oh. Who knows what's going to happen next week? I don't remember whatsoever. Fantastic. Let's take it to the plug zone then. Magellan, first things first, where can people find you on the podcast sphere?
You can also listen to me on another podcast, a video game podcast called Super Smash Echoes. It's a show I do with my friend Justin where we play games from the Super Smash Brothers franchise or related games, and it's a fun little video game book club. Super Smash Echoes. Alan, what about you?
I am on The Hunter's Quorum, which is a Monster Hunter review discussion comedy podcast that I do with my friend Six over on scanlinemedia.com, which is a great website, and you should subscribe to their Patreon. You can also hear me on Talking Marketing, a bi-monthly marketing podcast where I and some of my co-VPs over at the American Marketing Association of Boston interview various marketing professionals about their craft and what makes them tick. So check that out, Talking Marketing. It's on all the podcast platforms. And Magellan, do you want to do the plug zone for this week, for the podcast?
I surely do. You can get in touch with the show in a few different ways. You can email us at chatspot@gmail.com with your questions, comments, concerns, or suggestions. You can also let us know if you want to join us on an episode of Chatz8. We would love to have you. Just name the episode, and we'll probably be able to get you in. You should probably name one that's a couple in advance because we record about a week and a half ahead of time. So, just keep that in mind. But anyway, email us at chatspot@gmail.com. You can also follow us on Twitter at chatspod, where you can DM us as well or retweet us or, the Twitter things. I haven't been on Twitter in a while, but those are the Twitter things I remember you can do. You can join a community of fellow listeners on reddit.com/r/chatspod, where we watch current and former Chatz shows, listen to current and former Chatz seasons. And you can join other listeners on our Discord, which is a benefit for our patrons, $1 a month and up. And we'll also, let you on if you really want to be on. It's okay. Come on in.
Come on in.
Supporting the Patreon also gets you access at $3 and up to twice monthly bonus content, as well as a huge backlog of, I think at this point, triple digit bonus episodes. Lots of content, movie commentaries, us piloting shows, us just chatting and having a fun time. I highly recommend being a patron and checking out all the stuff we got back there. It's we put a lot of work into it. And we really are proud of our bonus content. And then $5 a month and up gets you thanked at the end of every episode. Special thanks go to Stefan, Six, Pat, and Nick of the Brothers in Infinite War, Michael, Marcus, my mom, Lee, Kat, Justin, Jen, and Arthur. Thank you, folks. You can also rate us on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts, Spotify, if that has ratings. I'm not quite sure. You can check out our website at chatspod.com. You can also support at Camillastrator, the creator of our podcast art. Now comes the time of the show where we talk about our chatsums, our recommendations of things that you can snack on and sample between now and next time. Alan, what's your chatsum for this week?
Whoa. Let me see. Podcast wise, I pretty much have recommended over the Wii years, all of the stuff that I listen to primarily. I have just a small experience chatsum. How about this? It's a life hack, if you will. Two things. Number one, these are both literally life hacks. I'm being earnest because it's Chatz8. If you feel like your phone is old and you want to get rid of it, or you don't want to like buy a new one, change your wallpaper and you'll feel like you got a new phone. It's an honest to goodness life hack that I did recently, and I was like, oh, I feel like I got a new phone. Super smart there. Number two, if you have a lot of cords in your bedroom and you want to consolidate them so that they don't fall off your table over and over again, just attach a chip clip to the side of your desk and roll them through the chip clip, and they'll all stay in place and never ever move, and it's perfect, and I recommend it if you are living in cord hell like I am. I just feel like I haven't done live chatsums in a while, so I wanted to give you guys that. Also, my chatsum is 4 non-blondes. What's up? How about that? Fuck you. What about you, Michelle?
I don't think I've recommended this YouTube channel before. Have I talked about Alpho Media at all? Does that ring a bell?
Alpho ALPHO?
ALFO.
Nope, you have not.
Okay. This is a music video essay channel that I'll watch every so often. And for the most part, it's kind of just like what the guy felt like talking about at that time. They're not the most like thorough music video essays. It's kind of just like, here's what I think about this, or this was on my mind, or whatever. But I think the guy has interesting ideas about what to look into or focus on. And it's kind of like talking to a friend who loves making best of all time lists and is pretty knowledgeable about music. And there's one particular one that I watched recently that was fun, which is he's trying to think about which word has the best songs. So which like single word is in the most good song titles.
Oh, what? Okay.
And that's like an interesting thought experiment little video. It's like 8-9 minutes long. My suggestion is I think it's probably the word don't. That's what I think probably has the most good ones. But it's a fun video, and Alpha Media has a variety of like best posse cut song from about a month ago. That's a good one. Anyway, Alpha Media.
I love it. Alpha Media. Magellan. So I cry sometimes when I'm lying in bed just to get it all out, what's in my head. And I'm feeling a little peculiar.
Okay, yeah, I was going to ask.
Yeah, and so, I wake up in the morning and I step outside as one does. And I take a deep breath. I get really high and I scream from the top of my lungs, "Thank you, Magellan."
Oh. And I say, hey, yay, 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 yay. Hey, yay, yeah.
Hey, yeah.
I say, hey. Thank you, Alan.
Oh, sweetums. Thank you also. Thank you all so very much for listening to Chatz8. We hope you'll join us again next week as we continue to discuss Sense8. Thank you. We love you very much, and peace out. Go to karaoke.
Bye-bye.